sit down somewhere?
Mom, he's picking on me.
If you know your party's extension, please dial it now.
Houston, we have a problem.
Sick of all this complaining all the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Welcome back, everyone, to Multitasking in Heels. We hope you had a great week, or at least a relatively palatable one. As I was thinking about how to kick off this episode, I reflected on a conversation I had with my husband, Dan, who was asking about, what topics Lindsey and I have coming up for the podcast. And I ran through, a handful of them and let him know what we've got coming up. And he said, wow, you guys are kind of all over the place. And I responded, thanks, Captain Supportive. But then I explained to him that that's life, right? Life can be awesome and life can be sad and tragic and hilarious and frustrating. And more often than not, really boring. So life is not one-dimensional and people are not one-dimensional. And that's why Lindsey and I feel it's important to bring a range of ideas and topics to this podcast, and really nothing is off limits. And we hope that's why people come back to listen to us. So after I explained that to him, he looked at me with almost childlike wonderment and said, yeah, that makes total sense. Thanks, Dan. Anyway, joining us today is Julie Dereshinsky. In addition to being a wife and a mom, like most of us, she's also a very accomplished professional who's in the middle of a pivotal career change. So we thought it would be great for Julie to share her story with everybody here. Full disclosure, she's I can't talk. She is also my cousin. We're not above using nepotism here on Multitasking in Heels to get a good guest. So Julie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Liz and Lindsey. It's great to be here.
So as our guest, would you mind kicking us off with your pump and flat moment of the week?
Sure, I'd love to. All right. So for my, as you said, Liz, life is pretty much the same every day right now. So there aren't that many pumps or flats. But I have to say, thinking about this, my pump has to do with Rudy Giuliani. And
I think I know where you're going.
So a couple of days ago, my daughter was asking about Christmas shows and movies coming out, and she really wanted to watch Rudolph. And so I said, well, I don't think it's out yet, a couple more weeks. And she said, well, let's look up Rudolph. I want to see him. Let's look at him on your phone. So I went to Google just Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. And of course, Rudy came up, only I was doing 5 things at once. So I'm just clicking on the first thing that comes up. So the picture that opens up is Rudy Giuliani sweating like Charlie Sheen after a 4-day coat bender. And my daughter starts screaming and goes, I don't want to watch this new garbage, Rudolph.
Oh my God.
She was so upset. And I was like, you know what, sweetie? Neither do I. Let's go find the real deal, Rudolph.
That's amazing. Julie's daughter is hysterical. She calls Donald Trump Donald Trumpet. And she just has all these little quips all the time that are just a riot. So that's amazing.
And my flat moment also has to do with my daughter. And again, boring dinner night story, but I attempted to make gnocchi for the first time. And by attempted to
one of my favorites.
It wasn't homemade. So by attempted to make means I just boiled it in water. And my kids love pasta. They want pasta almost every night. And so this is quote unquote a new food. And so we prepare it, we put it in the bowls. She takes one bite. She literally picked it out of her mouth, threw down her fork, threw it and said, you're trying to make me eat potato junk and I won't have it.
No.
Oh my God.
How old is she?
4. And Liz, I took a page out of your book. I remember you once saying that one of your kids wasn't eating what you put on the table, and you said something like, it takes 2 full weeks for you to die of starvation. So have at it.
Clock's ticking.
Yeah, you get what you get. You don't get upset.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's just a perfect, I don't know, that sums up parenting really perfectly, that you just don't know how they're going to respond to what you put in front of them. But I am just too tired to be a short order cook. And, if they're not going to eat what I put in front of them and 10 minutes later, they're in the kitchen making themselves a bagel, Danny gets really annoyed, but I'm like, I didn't have to make that bagel. I don't care. Just
Exactly.
figure it out.
Pick your
we're
battles.
raising survivors here.
We've got bigger fish to fry over here than making toast instead of eating gnocchi. So,
But what happened to the days like when we were raised when you had to eat it or at least try it or sit at the table until it was done?
No. Our children are more resilient than I think we were as kids. They will like dig their heels in and not give in. They would rather starve than eat the gnocchi.
yep.
The potato, what was the
Potato
line?
junk. Potato junk. I think my son even asked for some ketchup.
Well, you know, it is potato. It's like a
Yes.
chip or a fry.
That's amazing. Linz, what about you? How was your week?
Well, why do you ask me this every
I know,
week?
because I know the answer is always it was challenging.
Yes.
But let's focus on the good stuff first.
There was actually quite a few pump moments this week
Good.
that I was like, ooh, which one do I choose? So last night, we were flipping through channels, and as you do, because now you have so many streaming services, but there's still nothing to watch. So I love movies, and I love rewatching really good movies from the 80s and 90s because when you find one that you really loved, it's like epic. So last night, my husband and I ended up on Tombstone, and you know it was worth it because we were on mainstream TV. Yikes. And real commercials. Yikes. And these days, we could have easily gone on any streaming service, found it really easily with like a click of the clicker. But it was kind of like those days when you owned like the VHS version or the DVD version, but you were too lazy to go get it and put it in. So it was kind of like we went old school and did it that way. But it was such a great movie with so many stars in it and so many great quotes besides the obvious, like Val Kilmer is Doc Holliday, like I'm your Huckleberry, and Wyatt, I'm rolling when he sees Wyatt Earp the first time in town. But there was one that I forgot and started laughing so hard that I had to put it in here. So it was also a line to a forgotten star that was in there, at least for me, a pudgy Billy Bob Thornton.
Oh.
And I looked at my husband and said, is that Billy Bob? Like, it was his voice, but I kept looking at him. It wasn't him. And he goes, yeah. And so Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp goes up to Billy Bob and he says, damn right you're scared. I can see that in your eyes. And Billy Bob is Johnny Tyler and reaches for his gun. And Wyatt Earp says, go ahead, skin it. Skin that smoke wagon and see what happens. Now, I don't know about you ladies, but it sounds like he's asking Billy Bob to do something really dirty. And I don't think I want to see what happens. So Brian and I both started laughing really hard. And I said, did he just say smoke wagon? Skin that smoke wagon? And he goes, yes, I believe he did. So we just were like hooked on the movie. And then also all these actors just kept popping up. Like, do you remember that Jason Priestley was in that movie?
He was? Oh, I didn't know that.
And
90210 Jason Priestley, like back in the day? Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Good old
and
Brandon.
he actually played a famous, his role was based off of a famous author and peace officer who was a real dude in Tombstone, Arizona, named Billy Breckenridge, who was the most courteous and model peace officer in Tombstone history.
Wow.
Yes, so a little piece of history.
Fun
But
fact.
also, like, Aiden from Sex and the City was in it. Michael
my God.
Bain. So if you rewatch it, you're gonna be like, wait. So it was pretty good. My flat moment, I had to remind myself again, a quote that I knew the quote first, but I looked up who the quote was attributed to. And it was this awesome woman who's an amazing independent R&B gospel singer and filmmaker. And she said, a strong woman looks a challenge in the eye and gives it a wink. So I was faced with a lot of challenges this last week, personally and professionally. And if I had to say that I did a wink to every challenge, you would think I had something in my eyes, which I think is the perfect segue for our topic today.
Mm-hmm.
And to turn it over to you, Liz, what was your pump and flat moment?
So my pump moment, so our church is doing this charitable kind of drive this holiday season where they're called, I actually brought the pamphlet so I could describe it accurately, but they're called Boxes of Joy. And you go and you get from the church these pre-made boxes, and you're supposed to fill them with certain items, and the pamphlet outlines, what items you should have, and it's certain hygiene items and candy and small toys. And then they will ship these boxes. I don't know if it's only in the US or across the world, but to impoverished children who otherwise couldn't afford the contents of the box. And literally on the cover of the pamphlet, it says, "Your box of joy may be the only Christmas gift a child receives," which, like, someone might as well have just punched me in the gut, because my kids are like, "I want a hoverboard. I want the new Xbox." I'm like, how about a fucking toothbrush, you ingrates? Like, literally in the pamphlet, it's like these kids need toothbrushes and toothpaste and soap and hard candy and, some small toys and whatever. So Dan goes to church and gets 3 boxes, and he's got this great idea that each one of our kids is going to take a box and they're going to contribute money, and they're going to go to the store and they're going to pick out all the items and fill all the boxes. Do you guys think any of that happened?
No, it was you.
So
0 chance.
What happened was, the reason why this was my pump moment was because although my sons were fine contributing financially to this endeavor, they weren't feeling so philanthropic that they actually wanted to participate. My daughter, on the other hand, got really, really excited about it and sat there with the pamphlet and made a shopping list for us and divided it into categories like hygiene and candy and toys. And she went on to Target.com to see if she could figure out toys that would be small enough to fit in the box. So we went out shopping last weekend, and we went to CVS, and then we went to the toy store, and we brought up the box with us to make sure all the stuff could fit in there, and came home and filled all the boxes. And she was so pleased with herself and just so happy. And I mean, we were like in the store, and she was like agonizing over what color slime these kids would want and all that stuff. And so we put all the boxes together, and she was so excited to show Dan, everything we got for the kids and stuff like that. So just, I think she understood the spirit of what we were doing. And I hope that that resonates with her, particularly this time of year, and particularly during everything that we're going through with the pandemic. My flat moment was, and Lindsey, I'm sure you saw this email too. We got an email from school about a workshop for 7th graders and parents on suicide prevention. And it just really made me sad that we even have to have that conversation with our kids at this young age. And I mean, in the email, it said that suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death for youths ages 10 to 24. And that's a pretty alarming statistic. And, I have a child that's emotionally dysregulated. So Dan and I make it a priority to make sure that he has self-confidence, that he has resilience, that he can talk to us. And, Lindsey, our boys, they're going through puberty right now. So there's tons of stuff going on in their heads. They're very naturally going to be angsty and probably depressed and off and not want to talk to us. So how do you know what is like a normal, quote unquote, reaction to something like sitting in your bedroom for 2 days versus like, is this something we have to worry about? And it just makes me sad that we have to worry about those things. I think our kids today have so much more pressure on them than we did growing up. And couple that with a pandemic and isolation and all of that, it just compounds all of that. So I certainly applaud the school for raising the topic and having the workshop for parents and having a separate workshop for the kids. But it just kind of made me sad that we're at that stage where like we need to be mindful of things like this and have those conversations,
Yeah. Well, Liz, you went deep.
Sorry. I know we're supposed to keep things light, but it just just
I'm like,
seeing that
here
email,
Julie and I went potato gnocchis and Kurt Russell.
But that's life, Lindsey, right? That's what I said earlier. That's life.
Yep.
It's hilarious.
Yep.
It's frustrating. And then it's tragic. And then it's going to be really boring. So, all right. So let's get into our topic. Jules, we're so excited to have you here today. So as I mentioned in the intro, you're in the middle of this like pivotal career change. So Can you just tell everyone a little bit about how you spent the majority of your career, and if there was, a pivotal moment where you realized, like, all right, I really need to make a change here. This isn't fulfilling for me.
Sure. Thanks, Liz. It'll be a little bit long-winded because the journey was a little bit long-winded, but I'll do my best to summarize it in a concise way. So I have spent the majority of my career, 20 plus years now, in the high-tech space, mainly consulting with and managing relationships at Fortune 500 companies. That really runs the gamut from those, large organizations to, 2 or 3 person startups. And for the past several years, I've been leading customer success for a publicly traded company here in the Boston area. And what I like about this path and my journey is the relationship aspect of it. The product stuff, like the tech usage stuff, I never liked it. And honestly, if I ever during my career, got pulled into a room and quizzed on any product that I was supposed to be evangelizing or quote unquote an expert on, like they tossed me out on my ass so fast. But put me in front of a CIO with like a multi-million-dollar trade loss because of our software. That's my jam. Because at the end of the day, for me, connecting with humans is what I'm drawn to. So that sort of experience is what matters, not the thing. And so, I've never been into really selling or towing the line. I just kind of figured out how to use this, I guess, superpower of connecting with others to really be successful here. So, but the reality is I'd rather sit across from somebody in a business setting and talk about, her husband or his wife and kids and struggles than problems with a dumb technology product. Which leads me to the moment I realized I, needed to make a change. And it's sort of a loaded question because if I think back, it probably started with me as a 19-year-old saying to my parents, I think I'd like to major in sociology or psychology. And that was immediately met with, no, you'll never make any money. What are you going to be, a social worker? Choose something else. Fast forward to my late 20s, and I remember saying to my partner at the time, I think I'd like to check out Good Samaritans, maybe the suicide hotline. And that was immediately met with, are you nuts? You want to talk to depressing, miserable people all day? That sounds like a terrible idea. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I also dabbled in mediation during that time. So I've always had this hunger to both be in service to others and to kind of tap into that passion I have for connecting deeply with others, right? And having like a richness to the experience with somebody on the other side of my table. So while not pivotal exactly, somewhere like around 2018, so a couple of years ago, someone who I was working with in my customer success role, who happened to be a leadership coach in my organization, made an innocuous comment during one of our presentations, something like, "Are you sure you're not a coach? You sound like you know what you're talking about." And it got my wheels turning because I was like, "Yeah, yeah, maybe I should be a coach." So because I sometimes go all in and can be somewhat impulsive, I decided to, just start doing some research and dip my toes in the water. And I kind of felt like, if not now, when? I'm in my mid-40s, and I'm reflecting a lot on those starts and stops and those ideas I had back when I was, a younger version of myself. And I realized the only thing that was stopping me was other people's opinions, clearly, and fear. And I think, as we all do, something shifted in my 40s, and now I just don't give a crap.
Don't care.
Yeah, I just don't care, unapologetically. Like, what do I want? And as professionals and moms and wives, like, when do we ever stop and just take a breath and say, what do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want to do? Like, really, what do I want to do? And not feel embarrassed because it's vulnerable. And so I should say that my intention to dip my toe in the water, once I realized this is what I wanted to do, was to continue in my current role, right? I didn't have a plan for transitioning. It wasn't just like, hey, I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to quit my job tomorrow. I felt like I needed to kind of try stuff on. And this is really new for me. I'm not used to window shopping or taking small steps. Like I said, I go all in. And I typically need to know what the outcome will be.
Right. So it's interesting that you're saying all this, Julie, because when I was reading up on this, it's actually quite normal because so many people know who they are at 40 and have the self-confidence and life experience to go, I don't give a fuck anymore. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. And by then, they also either have the supportive partner or not, and they're just going to go all in. And they know that money doesn't make happiness or your success. So go for your dream instead.
Exactly. It's quite liberating.
And so obviously, Julie, you couldn't just, like you said, you didn't quit your job one day and start coaching the next day. This was a pretty lengthy process of certifications and workshops and different things like that. So talk to us a little bit about what that process was like and how you found the time between working full time and having small children to sort of squeeze all that in.
Sure. So I'd say sign up for stuff first and apologize later. What's my initial motto? I already paid for this. I'm just kidding. I quietly did my research, known as Google. And I met up with a woman for coffee who is actually coaching, and kind of picked her brain and narrowed down, if I'm going to do this, where should I do it? What training institution should I do it with? What do I ultimately want to do with this? And I decided I was going to sign up for like an introduction fundamentals type course through this leadership coaching and life design organization. That required me to be in Boston all day on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on a beautiful summer weekend in July that summer. My husband was really supportive about it. I mean, it definitely required some childcare gymnastics that first Friday, because I think he was flying in on the red eye from a work trip. So we needed to manage care for the kids, but we figured it out, and it was fine. And normally that might have held me back from even doing it, because it just like, no, forget it. It's going to like F up the home front on the weekend. But I was like, nope, this is important to me. I'm going to do it. And I remember driving into Boston that Friday, being at the Alston Brighton tolls and vividly thinking like, what am I doing? Like, I spent all this money, super anxious. I was like, what?
Yes, it was a brand new adventure and you didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So it's totally normal to second guess yourself.
Yeah. And so, but I knew, like, my gut never steers me wrong. And after 10 minutes in the Seaport Ballroom with 15 other, peers, contemporaries, I thought, these are my people. They're speaking my language. This is what I'm meant to be doing. I don't know what it is yet, but I feel like I'm in the right place. And I came home and I had so much energy, and I'm to my husband. And, I signed up for the full program, which now meant I had to do the same Friday through Sunday deal once a month between August and December. And at that point, I think he was still a little bit skeptical, but was still, pretty supportive. And I may have promised a whole bunch of golf weekends during that conversation, which was okay. And as far as the hour, I mean, so there's the weekends, and then there's obviously the time. And, we have 2 small children, as you guys heard in my pump and flat moment, 4 and 6. They are needy. They require a ton, and I want to give them a ton. But I felt like this was something I really needed to put my energy in and focus on, and that sort of kept me motivated. I should also mention that my current job isn't super, super crazy right now, or wasn't over the last 9 months. So I was able to kind of eke through what I needed to get through to get certified. And it was all during COVID, which was a dumpster fire. It wasn't pretty. The wheels were off in terms of what I let my kids do at the time. But I needed to just do it, and I did it.
So what is the, which is amazing, what does the certification kind of entitle you to do? Is it a combination of leadership coaching, career coaching, life coaching, or is it kind of a little bit more of a narrower focus?
Yeah, so I guess all of the above. This particular certification is pretty highly regarded in the organizational development and leadership circles. For me, it gives me legitimacy. So anybody could say I'm a coach, and you can, I guess it would be harder to get hired organizationally without actually being a coach, but anybody can say they're a life coach and start working with people. But this program that I did is regulated by the International Coaches Foundation. So there's ethical standards, there's a certain amount of, it's legitimate. And it's one of the best training organizations in the world. So that was, because I go all in, that was the one I chose. So I think initially I thought all I needed was those letters after my name, because, I thought I'm so good at this. I'm already doing it. I just need the letters. But I quickly realized the power in the training. It really kind of allowed me to dig in and be way more skilled.
So, Julie, so are you still holding a regular job and you do this on the side?
For another 2 weeks.
Oh.
Yeah. So I've been moonlighting on the side. So, a lot of times, like I said, my day job has been pretty flexible. I've always worked from home, not just pre-COVID. And now that our kids are back in school, at least like 3 hours a week, it feels like.
Seriously.
I'm able to do a little bit more, but otherwise, I can do stuff at night. We have the space to do it here, because I always work from home. I have the office. So yes, I've been moonlighting on the side, mainly life design coaching. So I work with a lot of moms and women who are like us, just struggling to keep it all together. That tends to be the niche that I'm falling into, really just helping women show up for themselves. And a lot of times women are doing the same thing we're doing, so they're not available until at night or on the weekends. But I did resign from my job. My last day is December 4th. And so my plan is to give myself the space over the next couple of months to really go all in and be able to do business, with the time that I have available.
That is so exciting. And talk about, just reaching, that's a point of success, right? You identified something that you were really passionate about and found personally fulfilling, and you're at a point now where you can devote yourself full time to building that and seeing what you can make of it, which is incredible.
And what I love, where my kid, as far as my kids are concerned, I love being able to talk to them about mom taking a chance, pursuing something that I'm super interested in, and seeing their dad give me the space and support to do that is just, I think, just a great example for them to see. And I have to say, many of the skills I'm learning and have learned and developed help me personally on the home front too.
I'm sure.
I
Right?
bet.
Like we grew up in at least I know Liz and I did such a, like, do as I say, not as I do. I think that might've been a title of one of your previous episodes.
Yep.
But like, or no. And when confronted with why, it's because I said so. Like,
Yep.
I feel like I have so many more tools now as a result of this to be able to, I don't know, communicate better and like coach my kids and not just tell them what to do because I said so.
Yeah. So you actually got personal growth out of your certification experience, in addition to figuring out how you can apply that to helping people, which is tremendous. How did you go about finding your clients?
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah. Bravery, vulnerability. Actually, well, truthfully, during one of those weekends, I got a challenge from one of my fellow coaches or one of the facilitators because I said, I hate putting myself out there. I don't like I hate self-promotion. I hate asking people for money. I'm just really uncomfortable with it. And I remember somebody having a very frank conversation with me and saying, well, you got to get comfortable with it. Like, or don't do this, but you need to self-advocate for, So I put myself out there. I took a deep breath. I was like laying on my bed while my daughter was in the bathtub at like 7:00 on that Saturday night. So halfway through a weekend of one of the trainings. And I decided, what the hell? And I put a message out there to a working moms group that I'm a part of, and put myself out there and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm new at it. I want to practice. I'd love, if anybody is interested in coaching, let's talk. And I said a bit more than that. And then boom, I had like 5 clients almost immediately. So that's kind of where it all started. And then having some great conversations with those women really, really just fueled me. And from there, it just kept going.
right? Word of mouth. And I'm
Mhm.
sure just giving you confidence to probably put yourself out there more and market yourself.
Yeah, and not stop. Like a lot of times in the past, I would stop in my tracks if I didn't know what the end game was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of that had to do with the time of my life I was in. And now, it just allowing myself the ability to not know what's coming next and still move forward is new for me, but it's working for me.
So I was on a seminar for the ANA, the I forget what the stands for, but Advertising Networking Association.
Hmm.
And there was a guy on there who said an interesting thing, and I'd be interested in how you would answer this.
Hmm.
And you don't have to answer it if you feel like it's putting you on the spot. But
Okay.
he said to market yourself, you need 3 words or so to describe your niche, your voice, and then your story. So, for instance, like for me, my niche would be executive creative producer.
Hmm.
And then my voice might be brave, positive, truthful advocate. And then for your story, he said the story part I think is a little bit harder. It was a multicultural marketing seminar, so he said mongrel, which I thought was kind of a negative word, but he used it as a badge of honor
Mm.
because he came from I think Ethiopia, but he used that as one of his words. So I said for myself, entrepreneurial spirit, dream believer, and action maker. So I just thought it was really cool of how he presented this in such a like tight, concise way,
Mm.
and thought it would probably be a good tool for you going forward to get people to think in a different way. But
Hmm.
I also thought, I wonder what Julie would say.
God damn it now. All right, well, you've given me time to think and frantically come up with three. So,
Okay.
off the top of my head, niche, I would say high performing women and moms. Voice, I would say authentic and genuine. And story, experience, because I'm walking that same path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can connect on just an empathetic level.
Yeah, and that takes
Seriously.
and honestly, as a coach, that takes some self-management because my instinct, because I'm an empath and because I'm a
Mm-hmm.
connector, is when I'm
Yes.
coaching somebody to say like, me too. Isn't that so irritating? Like, let me tell you what my husband and children like pulled yesterday, but I can't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to be detached and I have to be, I mean, it's still a relationship, so I don't necessarily hold back everything, but
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta keep that in check a little bit.
Yeah. Now, was there ever a moment where you're coaching someone and whatever they were struggling with, or you got into a conversation where you were like, oh geez, I don't know if this person needs coaching or they need like a deeper level of assistance, like therapy? Like, have you ever had a scenario where you've had to kind of say to someone, I think that you need a different level of assistance?
Mm, yes, it happens a lot, and many of the clients I'm working with have been or are in therapy right now. But what brings them to coaching is their desire to frame their future. So they spent a lot of time in therapy, kind of figuring out like why we are the way we are, and then knowing all that they know about themselves in therapy, sort of use that and frame their future. So I've had those moments though, because I don't always know if somebody is in or has been in therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And most often, what I do is name it. So, and I name it, during the discussion. So somebody can be super anxious. I don't know if they're being treated for anxiety or not. I mean, in my mind, I can think like, you know, they probably are or they should be, but it's not my role to say I think you should be treated for anxiety, but what I can say is name it. What I can do is name it and say something like, I'm noticing you really tense up when you say X. What's that all about? And sometimes it's fear that's manifesting in anxiety. So I think if we stay, what I try to do with clients is kind of stay in that fear and explore it a little bit. And that can be super enlightening.
It's also scary.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally.
Like
Totally.
the fact that like everything that you've done is so brave and so amazing, and that's what holds a lot of people back, and that's what you keep reading about when people do this kind of stuff, is that fear holds them back from doing anything.
Yeah. And I want to double back on something that I think you said it, Liz, which is, you know, obviously just deciding one day, you know, I think I'd rather be a farmer than a lawyer. Like, that's not practical. Most people
Right.
have legitimate obstacles and barriers keeping them from doing a career change. Like, that's life. I think the thing for me is, you know, even if I never became a coach and I wasn't able at this point of my life to quit my job and change careers and take this kind of a financial risk, the personal growth that has come and the friendships that I've made, like these gifts that have come to me as a result of me being brave and vulnerable and like driving into Boston and being like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I wouldn't have had all that had I not taken those steps. So I guess my point is, like, sometimes just exploring what we're interested in and saying yes to something we might not otherwise say yes to, can spark a lot of joy and
Yeah, the journey, right? You get a lot out of just the journey.
exactly.
So if you had to say to our listeners, you could benefit from coaching if you're feeling like this, or, you know, what kind of person do you think could best benefit from coaching, or, you know, if they're going through some struggles or uncertainty in their lives?
Yeah, I would say it's those of you who, you know, if you think about any aspect on your life from a scale of 1 to 10, whether it's your romantic relationship, your career, your physical health, on a scale of 1 to 10, if it's anything below a 10, which for most of us it is, what would it take to make it a 10? Like, what's stopping you from getting to that 10? I think for a lot of people, sometimes it starts off with one area. Like, I have a lot of people that will come to me and want coaching on career, and like an emerging leader looking to, you know, unblock some blockers. And what we end up focusing on 3 sessions later is his or her personal relationship with their partner. You know, it's so I think once people stop and start asking themselves, like, what do I really want? That probably is the biggest, if you're out there and you think, and you can stop and ask yourself, like, what is it that I want? And you don't know, I think that is a great first step for whether or not coaching would be right for you.
So without breaking any confidentiality, do you have any funny stories you could share with us about coaching experiences?
Let's see. Good question. So I don't have anything coach client specific to share, but I do have a funny story kind of related to coaching. And my poor daughter is going to be in therapy the amount of times I'm bringing her up in this. So last spring, during the midst of the lockdown, I had a coaching session scheduled, and my husband had a conference call at the same time. Both of our kids obviously were home, and she was 3 at the time. So she's doing what 3-year-olds do, and she's throwing a fit about something. I'm right outside. I have a glass, like, French door separating my office from the rest of the house. And she's out there and screaming and flipping out. And like, I think she's saying something about a whistle. Like, I have your whistle. Do you want your whistle? And I'm like, fuck is she, what is up with the whistle? And, you know, just banging on the door. And I was on video and I was on audio, and it was so loud. And I finally realized when I saw what was in her hand, like, she was literally trying to give me one of those junky plastic birthday party whistles. because she thinks I'm an athletic coach. She literally thinks that I am like coaching somebody through Zoom on a field and I need a whistle.
That is awesome. Oh my gosh. She's amazing.
Yep. So there you go.
That's hysterical. Hysterical. So any advice you would give to our listeners who are considering a career change? I mean, obviously it's, you got to be willing to kind of make that step, but any sort of insights you could provide?
Yeah, I think just expanding on what I said a few moments ago, I'm a really big believer that the universe gives back what you put in. And I would say you don't have to know the end game. You don't have to have it all figured out. I still don't. Like, honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just putting one foot in front of the other and like, just doing the best I can. And a career change might be truly out of reach for some people. But again, like I said, when we dip our toes in the water of interest, there are gifts. And that might be something huge, like a career transition or an aha moment, or it might be something small, like a new friend, which I don't mean to minimize making a new friend, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It leads to something else, and you don't know.
You never know.
Like you said, Julie, if you start saying yes to things, I think we're so, especially at this point in our lives, we're like, we have our lives, right? We've got our marriage and our kids and our careers. And so we've assumed that we've put ourselves in this box and this is the box we're supposed to stay in. And so anything outside of that can seem scary or, oh, it's not worth it, or what if I fail, or whatever. So yeah, having the courage either to make a career change, introduce yourself to someone new, to start up a new hobby, whatever you need to do to make your life feel more fulfilled. If you start saying yes to more things, you could probably see yourself grow as a person.
Exactly. I say a lot of times to, not in my coaching world, but like to family or friends or whatnot, and to myself, when you're not sure what to do something. Like, just do something. And practice saying out loud, practice asking for what you want out loud. I think that's a big mental muscle that as moms and women, we just don't do.
I think you're totally right.
If somebody
you
said
can have as many conversations in your head.
Yeah.
But yeah.
If somebody I think that happened where somebody said to me during one of the first sessions, like, what is it that you want? And I was like, I don't know. A cheeseburger? like
exactly.
So.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for coming on the show for us. I'm sure that so many people are going to get so much out of this. And I'm sure because of COVID, I know, and I've said this on a couple episodes, that people are probably questioning if they're doing the right thing and working at the job that they're meant to be working at. So if you're in the middle of life and you're a busy father or wife, maybe stop chasing someone else's dream and trade it in for something that makes your eyes gleam. A career change might be just the right call. Don't be scared. Just start calling the ball. Find a better fit for you, because only you know, and it couldn't be worse than this 2020 shit show.
I love that.
So again, thank you for coming. We truly appreciate you upending your schedule for us.
I know,
a few
again.
times.
Oh, Julie, you'll have to tell our listeners where they can find you.
Oh, sure. Yep. So listeners, you can find me on Instagram at Julie_Dereshinsky, or you can find me on my website at jwdcoaching.com.
Awesome. And you can also find Julie on another podcast called The Bubble Hour. And we will post where you can find her also in our socials, which would be on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Multitasking in Heels. We also have a website. Please find us on iTunes and Spotify and subscribe, rate, and review. It helps people find us. Thank you again.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, ladies. It was great to be here.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.